I'm excited. I wanted to share with you another past personal experience I had, which God is giving to me as a spiritual analogy. As I say, God speaks to me a lot through stories and metaphors and analogies, just to give me a picture of what's in His mind. It's amazing because God speaks to us through His Word, and when God speaks to us, it comes to us as a word. But sometimes God gives us and portrays it in a picture so that we can visualize it and it hits home. That's why even when we dream, it's like having that visual. It becomes an experience, and there's no better teacher than experience. So there's a time I was back in high school. I went to a boys' boarding school, so it was very competitive. And they were just competitive in everything, whether it's sports, even when it came to study. So that was a plus, because if people can challenge each other in who's better at school, you can imagine everyone is going to pass. And that's exactly the way it was, because my school, when it come to the rated schools, when it came to test results, our school actually won an award for one of the best schools in the country, and they won the Secretary's Bell Award. But what would happen was very interesting. What I want to talk about is when it was coming towards examinations. When it was coming towards examination, you had to be careful. You couldn't watch the people next to you. Some people were fooling themselves during the day. This was a boarding school, but you have to know that at the end, when you finish your examinations, you all go to your own homes. It's your whole life that is ahead of you. That's going to affect the college you're going to go to. That's going to affect your career and your future prospects. That examination. So you have to know that. Though when you're there at school, you wear the same uniform, you share the same dormitory, and people fooling around during the day, playing, not studying. But one thing that amazed me is people would get up in the middle of the night. And I caught ear of this one day, and I woke up one day as well, went to the classes to check it out, and you'd be surprised. One of the students I saw there was one of the notorious students. One you'd never imagine. It seemed like he didn't care about school. It was so funny because you could imagine all his friends were sleeping at this time. The ones he was fooling around with during the day. But at night, let me tell you something. At night, this man was not joking around. He was sleeping during the day, but at night, this man... So why am I sharing this story and this analogy is this? And I'm sharing this story. I also want to share something I heard growing up, and it's that, we all will have to give account for our lives one day before God. That's a scary thought even for me, but it's very liberating to know now than later. And when you're growing up, we're told this thing that one day you're going to come before God and you're going to be like, you're going to be looking around at your friends, the ones you played with and the ones you're fooling around with and doing all this and doing nonsense. And and you could be surprised that God will send you to the left. And you say, oh, that person you were keeping your eye on, trying to follow, they later on repented on their deathbed, and now they're going to have... Listen, or after you died, they went straight, they repented, they went straight, and they're now going to heaven, and you're gonna miss out. That's a very scary thought, but it's a good liberating to know this rather than later, because when you know this, knowledge is power, because you watch yourself, you know that your life is in your hands, not nobody else's. You can't follow anybody. You can't worry about what anybody else is doing. You keep your head down and live for God. Don't worry about what other people are saying. Don't worry about what other people are doing. It comes even more, not only how you're living, not only in your walk, but what you're serving, but also how you're serving God. Because one day you are going to have to give account. It reminded me of the story of the 10 virgins. There were 5 who were wise and 5 who were foolish. So you can imagine, on the surface, they're indistinguishable. They're all virgins. But the 5 who were wise, they were just smart, and they were prepared. They took more oil in their lamps as they were waiting for the bridegroom to come out and meet them. But the foolish virgins ran out of oil before the time. And when they heard the cry of the bridegroom, and they're trimming up their lamps, the foolish ones were like, "Oh, give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." And the wise ones said, "No, what if there isn't enough for you and us? Why don't you go and buy some for yourself?" And while they went away to buy some more oil, the bridegroom came. And those who were ready went into the marriage feast, and the door was shut. And afterwards they come and they're like, "Lord, Lord, open for us the doors." And you say, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you." And Jesus concluded the story saying, "Therefore watch, for you do not know the day nor the hour." You can't watch the next person. You just have to make sure of yourself. You can't live your life off other people. You can't watch what other people are doing, because you're in your own boat. And it doesn't only apply to your walk in life, but also how you serve God. It's so amazing. This is all in Matthew chapter 25, the story of the 10 virgins. And the story after that is of the master who gave out talents to these 3 men. To one he gave 5, to another he gave 2, and to another 1. And to each according to his own ability. And then he went off on his journey. And basically he expected a return on what he gave them. That he would come back and they would have increased his portfolio. So, it says immediately the one who received the 5 talents, he went and he traded with them and he made another 5 talents. And the one who got 2 talents gained another 2. But the one who received the 1 talent, he went away, he dug in the earth, and he hid his Lord's money. Now after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and reconciled accounts with them. And he was so proud of the one who he gave the 5 talents, and he doubled them. And he said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I'll set you over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord." And he also went to the one he gave 2 talents, and he was so proud of him. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. I'll set you over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. And then he went to the one he gave 1 talent, and he responded, "Lord, I knew that you were a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you did not scatter. I was afraid, and I went away and I hid your talent in the earth. Behold, you have what is yours." He just returned to him his 1 talent. But the Lord answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I do not sow and gather where I do not scatter. You ought therefore to have deposited the money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received back my own with interest. Take away therefore the talent from him, and give it to him that has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from him who does not have, even that which he has will be taken away." This is so incredible. It's like the others, Jesus said, when you're faithful with a few things, you can be trusted with much more. So it's important to be faithful. Especially you start with the simple things that God has given you. When you're faithful with the few and the simple things God has given you, the little things God has given you, then He increases it, He trusts you with more. He sees that you're faithful even with that little. So you have to be diligent and persistent. That's a principle of life. And the way I take this, it's I love God is just in His wisdom, because in the English translation we say talents Maybe that's the currency, and we know talents as abilities, or that's what comes to our mind when you read talents. But in fact, talents here is money. And I take it, is so many ways that God has given us many things to steward. Anything God has given us can be money, can be power, can be status, can be influence, can be beauty, can be it's any grace, any favor we have in our lives, and it's so unfortunate sometimes we use what God has given us for our own good. We use it in the wrong way, for our own selfish way, in a way that doesn't glorify God. We use it in the wrong way for our own selfish purpose, instead of glorifying God, instead of loving, serving other people. It's like the story of the shrewd manager. And because we don't really know that it's just something God has trusted to us, it doesn't really belong to us, but it's something, for the meanwhile, God has trusted to us to see if we're going to be faithful servants to Him, to see what reward we're going to get. So this life is like a test run. This is the examination. Do you know this life? Because we have eternity ahead of us. So I love that verse in Revelations chapter 22:12. It says, "Behold, I come quickly. My reward is with me to repay each man according to his work. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter by the gates into the city." I just love this so much because it talks about those two elements again in Matthew 25. And it's our walk with God, and it is our service to God. So I hope you're encouraged, guys. I hope you're blessed. Win today.